Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's vOLTHA TST call. Thanks for joining. As usual, the call is public and recorded and will be shared live on YouTube. So please be mindful of the comments that you make and the information that you share. So first of all, I have a topic related to the release of 2.7. As you guys know, the target for the code freeze is March 17th. So please do take the time to go through the list of open patches and open JIRAs that you have, and make sure that we are properly targeting for the release, and that whatever you have up is rebased and ready for review. And if any help is needed, just make sure to ping us. We are on track to have the code freeze on the 17th with a set of features. The release will be done on the 31st of March with the usual 2 weeks of testing. Please do take a look at this filter that I have created. It's a filter for the 2.7 JIRAs. I'll have to make it public. If you log in, it shows, but not to everybody. And sorry. So there you will find the list of JIRAs that you need to take care of. And please do update them. Anything that's not going to be in 2.7, just put it into future, and then we're going to move it into 2.8 or whatever release it's needed. But please do make sure to keep this up to date, because it's what makes us confident on code freezing on the 17th of March. Remember, bug fixes and testing is allowed to do after the code freeze. It's just no more features will go in after the 17th of March. Any questions, comments? No? Okay. Then another update from myself. And from the team working on the software ONOS and vOLTHA software update. Thanks a lot to Netze, especially Elida. We have reached a very good state for the ONOS apps. We now have all the apps with the changes that are required to perform a minor application version update in Gerrit. You can see them down here. We have an image that I have built, that is this one, that includes all of those patches in their latest version. So please do start using this. It's a favor I ask everybody. Please start using this image to do some tests. The more we test it, the better it is. In the meantime, I have pretty good confidence that this image is working, because I have tested it at scale in our nightly jobs. And scale cluster, and it works. I have now put it into the harder pods as well. So today for Pacific time, tonight for European time, and the rest of the day tomorrow, I will observe the pods, the harder pods. So every pod that we have, every job that runs will have this image. And when that is done, if we see successful passes of the tests, or maybe even if some of the test fails for unrelated reasons, I will go ahead and merge these patches. We also do have, thanks to Hardik, a test for this for both the ONOS apps and the vOLTHA components, because that's the second element that is very important. We have written down the test for checking the update of vOLTHA components from minor version to minor version, thanks to Hardik. And that test is now running periodically, nightly, including the ONOS one. The ONOS one is obviously failing because the apps are not yet there, but the one for vOLTHA components is actually passing, and we got a successful run in this one. Hardik, do you want to give us a brief overview of what that test does?
Yes, sure, and So if you can open that the link 25, the
Yes.
successful run one. Yeah. Okay. So this just basically checks for the upgrade of the ONOS apps for the minor version, and you can provide whatever apps you want to test as part of the parameter to the test, where you need to give the name of the app, the version, and the URL of the OR file to which you want to upgrade it to. And what this does is it will just to start with does a normal sanity. For now, it's working with the ATT workflow. um, we can update this to run for the other workflow as well, but for now it's with the ITT, because that tests on the AAA and the DHCP as well, which is kind of absent in other flows workflows. So after performing the sanity, it iterates over all the apps whichever you want to upgrade. For each app, what it does is Andrea, if you can please expand that. Uh,
Yes.
yeah. So currently it is testing only for the AAA app, and what it does is it downloads that OR file from that very URL that has been provided to a particular location, and then it deletes the existing ONOS app. It verifies that all the other apps are still active. Then it installs and activates the app under test, in this case say the AAA, with the new OAR file. And after that it verifies, okay, if that new app comes up as active, and then it also checks that all the other apps remain the same. Then it verifies that there should not be an ono spot restart with the upgrade of the minor version of the app, and then it again performs the sanity. uh, and then as an additional verification, for now what we have done is we again delete all the devices. So the first sanity, what it does right after the upgrade is that it checks all the honors values, all the authentications without adding a new subscriber. And then what it does is it deletes all the devices, and it again performs the sanity, where it adds the subscriber, performs authentication, and all the regular steps. So here it is failing because on the delete we are still seeing some data being there in ONOS, in this case for the AAA. And I think in future we'll be able to resolve that, and this should pass. So that's what we are doing at the moment in the ONOS app upgrade for the minor versions. And then for the vOLTHA component, it's again kind of similar. You can provide which all vOLTHA components you want to upgrade as part of the parameter to the test, in the form of the app label, the container name, and the image that you want to upgrade it to. And what it does is it again first performs a basic sanity and just sees, okay, if the system is running fine, and then it iterates one by one through each of the component which you want to upgrade. In this case we are testing the four components. The first one is the OpenOLT adapter. So in this case what it does is it just provides it with the new image, and verifies, okay, that the pod comes back up in the ready state with the new image, and it verifies, okay, the image is whatever you have upgraded it to, and then again it performs the sanity on that. So here also we are trying verifying it two ways. Okay, first you don't add anything, no new subscriber, and you just verifies with the same, and then you delete all the devices and just try to add everything back again, perform the sanity, and verify if that works fine. So it currently it is testing for the OpenOLT adapter. the adapter, ONU adapter, the OF agent, as well as the core. So all the 4 components are getting tested at the moment here in the nightly run.
Thanks, Hardik.
So
Okay,
this was
so
fine. Yeah.
Yep, this was working fine. So thanks, Hardik. And I believe as soon as we merge these, we will see proper status in Almos as well. Any questions?
Andrea, are these tests part of daily tests or not?
That's a very good question, Mahir. So at the moment, we run this nightly on BBSim. The idea is that it was done on BBSim just because we can test it more easily. Whenever, sorry, whenever this is going to be finalized on BBSim and we are sure that it's smooth and we don't have any major problems neither with the test nor with the images, we are going to move it to hardware as well. That is the plan. Maybe not on all the pods because it takes a little bit of time going through all the apps and all the components, restarts. But still, at least in some of the jobs, the plan is to put it in hardware as well. And that means running it nightly. So it will run nightly on BBSim as it is doing right now, and we will run nightly on the hardware pods as well. Okay, so any other question on this? No? Okay. Then if not, the other topic we are working on is the storage. So last time, I recall there was a discussion for having a TCD for all the stacks with some strongly consistent data and Redis for the fast access. Was there any thought given by all of you on this?
No, there wasn't much discussion on this, but I did share with the team here that I have to do some study. I'm doing some study on the current data that's stored on the ETC and which would require strong and which would require eventual. And based on that, we can make further decision. Yeah, the idea was probably to use the right tool for the right data. Yeah, that would mean using separate kinds of stores. But again, yeah, that decision would be based on the study that I was going to do. Unfortunately, last week was quite busy for me. I couldn't spare much time on this, hopefully for the next call.
Any other thoughts?
Just that more databases is going to make it more complicated, but that's okay. I mean, I agree with the right tool for the right job, but there is an operational complexity with 2 databases.
That is indeed a component that we need to take into account when we make the decision. It is also true that we have discussed this with our distributed system expert, Jordan, and he said that if you want fast access and strongly consistent, those 2 things don't really go hand in hand. So
yep.
So it's we might get to a point where we might have gotten to a point where we need both for our deployment solution. So
he did say, of course, that that's a perfectly reasonable approach. to have that. And as long as we have this layer that that separates writing to storage, reading from storage from the actual storage, which we already do, right? So he said he doesn't see any, real concerns with that. It's a perfectly reasonable approach. Yes, it's a little more complicated, but if you have to meet the scale and the needs for strong consistency, then there's no magic. And it's a perfectly reasonable approach to have two stores.
Just one comment. In the event of a failure and then a restart, are we going to load only from the etcd TV store, or are we also going to load from Redis? And how do we match the two of them?
I think that depends a lot on the analysis that we do of what we're going to put where. I think that would drive the decision of what actually, after a restart of a component, what do we really need and what we can recover from. It's kind of hard to talk about
fair
without knowing what we are putting where.
Yeah, exactly. Like my point is more like maybe we need to have that done first before we really make a decision. But we choose both of those databases. Maybe we'll have to, but it's maybe it's a little bit too early to make that that decision.
It is to me definitely a little early without the investigation that Girish is doing. The other missing piece is that we at ONF hadn't had the time and will probably not have the time until 2.7 is out to actually do the tests on the set of patches and images that Serkant made available. So a huge thanks to him for making available all the patches and the images to test Redis. It's just that we didn't have the time, and we will not have the time before the 2.7 release. So that's another data point that we will have to account into our discussion that we don't have at this point in time.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I want to add some more comments about the this storage thing. I strongly believe that we need to get rid of writing something to the disk at this rate. Also, in our test, we figured out that Kubernetes also itself uses the etcd. So running the vOLTHA at scale, and vOLTHA also uses the etcd, and etcd uses the disks. So they are not friendly. So Kubernetes etcd wants to access to disk, and our vOLTHA etcd wants to access the disk. And sometimes we saw that Kubernetes fails, especially the kube proxy and the kube API, and it's a total pod failure. So I think what we need to do is either we have to get rid of this persistency thing. At least we should decrease the rate of writing to the disk, or we would have some complex hardware, like differentiating the disks for the Kubernetes itself uses, and also for the vOLTHA, we should have different disks so they don't bother each other. That is another point I wanted to add.
Do you have more details on this conflict failure you're seeing between etcd, vOLTHA, and Kubernetes? Because that seems very odd.
Not much, actually, David.
Okay. If you could get more, that'd be great. Because
yeah.
Are they using the same instance of etcd?
No, of course not.
Well, what I think is that even if we go and decide that the TCD in some cases is needed for vOLTHA due to the strong consistency requirements, I also do believe that the amount of data that we will have to store in the strongly consistent side of a TCD will not be as much as we do right now, and that would allow us to keep the etcd performance on the vOLTHA side and not have it conflict with the etcd on the Kubernetes side. But that's just a hunch.
But if it's a disk conflict issue, it doesn't matter if it's writing etcd or writing to Redis.
No. I think
disk.
I think the disk conflict issue that Serkant is talking about, he might correct me if I'm wrong, is an amount of write to disk. It's like
right.
Not disk per disk space issue or disk like conflict on the same disk location, but more in a amount of writes and reads.
Yes, it's an IO rate issue.
But if we're writing the same amount of data to Redis, presumably there's the same IO rate to Redis.
But Redis is not in the does not have the persistence. We will not enable the persistency on disk with Redis, as far as I understand. From
we don't have to. We don't have to. Yeah.
So okay. So there's no persistence in Redis. It's just an in-memory cache then.
Yes.
Correct.
And the only reason etcd is writing to disk is because we're using the Bitnami charts, because the old charts didn't write to disk and load.
No, we were always faking not writing to disk. There was an option that allowed us not to write to disk, but etcd requires writing to disk for it to work, which is strongly consistent. What we were doing is that we were effectively faking. What we were doing is that we were effectively faking disk with by telling Kubernetes to use memory as a disk, which we are still doing, by the way. Is that right, Serkant?
Yes, correct. Perfectly correct.
All right, need to think about that. Because if we're using memory as a disk, then we shouldn't be running into disk conflicts with Kubernetes.
No, I think Serkant's analysis is based on when he tried enabling disk persistency with TCD.
Yeah, correct.
So there's a whole slew of data which is just used for in memory, and now we're trying to persist it.
Exactly. And that is the issue we are encountering, David.
And for that in-memory data, is it ever need to even go to even any in-memory database? Is that data local to one process?
Can you clarify the question? I didn't entirely get it.
Yeah, if we're going to using Redis in memory, when Redis goes away or whatever processes goes away, the data is lost.
Yep.
Right. So what's the point of writing to Redis? Can we just keep that in the process that uses it? Can it just be in memory?
Well,
because of any external database.
It's because of the reconciliation. If we lost the OpenOLT pod or RW core pod, then we are able to continue. But if we lost one of the Redis, the data is in the another Redis instance. So
Okay.
yeah, we can still continue if we lost one of the Redis
So
instances.
you're saying it's a highly available memory cache.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right, thanks. Still curious about the etcd conflict with Kubernetes, but okay, thanks.
Turkent, any other comments or thoughts you have on this?
No, but as you know, SCD in their documentation, they specifically says that SCD is better performed with the SSD disks. So in the field, we didn't put SSD disks, and also I think their prices are higher, and we want to have some rate mechanisms. I don't know if with the SSDs we can do the same. So
I would agree. I don't think we want to require SSDs.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah. Okay, I think so. We have our action items for the next time. Grish has to investigate what type of requirements we're putting on strong consistency, and certainly can share more information about the issue with the Kubernetes etcd as well. The other thing that I wanted to ask you, Serkant, is that so currently at the moment in the tests that you have done with Redis, just Redis, no etcd at all, you were willing to take the risk, or you're accepting the scenario where a failure of a contemporary, like a failure that happens at the same time of both, let's say, the RW core and the Redis instances can bring your system in an unrecoverable state. You're accepting this failure.
So I'm trying to test it and see it, but actually I've done that, but I am not sure about the results. So while activating the ONUs, I saw that if I restart the Redis, I saw that some of the ONU activation has failed, but later I was able to enable them again. I did the same test for the flows, some of the subscriber provisioning. I see some of the flows couldn't be inserted, not all of them, some of them couldn't be inserted into the devices, BBSIM. But later I was able to insert it. So it depends on the northbound systems. You can still, if there's a failure, you can still retry the same thing, and you can recover your state. But the problem is we were talking about the resource issues, that the jump port IDs, alloc IDs.
Yes.
But I couldn't able to catch that problem.
Okay.
I'll continue with that.
Okay. Yeah, if you can somewhat capture the scenarios that you're testing, that would be good, because this way we know what happens when, and it would be easier also for us to try and replicate or like do something in those scenarios to be along the lines of what you tested.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Andrea?
Yes.
Also, do we need to take an action about, deciding on whether we need persistency or not, or we had the decision about that?
Well, so that to me is somewhat secondary to understanding the types of data we're storing, because we in Redis, we can live with both. So if we go with that one, we can live with both. In etcd, it would be very good to have it. So pending, we need, sorry, not good to have it, but we need to have it. So pending on how much data goes into etcd, the persistency discussion needs to happen for etcd. And I expect the data to be a small enough amount that persistency can be enabled on the TCD. And that would allow us to recover in the cases of catastrophic failure for that data that cannot be relearned or reallocated. For Redis, if the performance allows, it would be up to our operator's decision at that point in time, if the performance allows. Am I making sense?
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say, whether we are using Redis or etcd, it's independent of Redis or etcd or anything else. Do we need to persist all of the data or not? If not, we're not doing well to using etcd to persist all of the data. If we're removing all of the data during these catastrophic things happen, and we remove all of the data and restore it from almost or somewhere else, and we don't use it, why we are persisting it?
So there are some data that we need to persist, like the gem part IDs, the allocation ID.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking this. Perhaps with the document that Girish is preparing for the data types that we are using, but what data we are persisting or putting into the KV store, we should also think on the data that which one do we want to persist or not.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll
persist here means doesn't necessarily mean the disk. It just means is this data mastered somewhere else that we can learn it from a third-party system. Therefore, vOLTHA doesn't have to store it at all.
Yes. So in case of a database failure, you could still recover it. That's
right. And if that's the case, then we may not need it in our database at all.
Well, I thought we already went through this discussion and we agreed that we need persistency.
Yeah, I have the same feeling. At least for those data, for that data that cannot be relearned from anywhere.
No, I'm not. I think we're agreeing to that. So the question is for data that can be relearned from a third system, ONOS, for example.
Yep.
We may not need to put that in our database at all. That's the data we're talking about. Data that we can't learn from a system. Then yes, we need to store it somewhere, and then we can argue if it still needs to be persisted to disk so that we can recover it that way, or if it can just be in an HA in memory cache. But for data that can be learned from a third-party system, we may not need to store it at all outside, being used in the application.
Yes. So there are three types of data here we're talking about. One that we should persist and we'll use it to restore ourselves or restore after restarts something else. There is a second type that say we need during the component reconciliations that we don't need to persist perhaps. And the third one is that we're writing some kind of data that we don't need to write to database.
Yes, I would agree with you, Maya. So the action items for you, Girish, when you write that document, is also to, by writing that, making sure that the things you put in there are really just the ones that we need, and those are going to be not just strongly consistent in the database that we will decide, but they will also be persisted to disk. So in case of catastrophic failure of all the components, those things could still be relearned, and the operation of the whole system can still be restarted just based on the environment outside of our cluster and that information from disk. Is that a fair assessment for the study of Girish? Does everybody agree?
I think so.
Okay, so I think that was all for this topic. I don't have any topic other for today, but I would like to open the floor up for discussion. If anybody has anything that they would like to ask the group, or any topic that they would like to bring up, now should be a right time. Okay, then if not, thanks everybody for participating in the meeting. I'll be, please do review your JIRA issues for the 17th of March code freeze. Effectively next Tuesday, we're gonna have the TST, and I'd like to not have any outstanding tasks, but just JIRAs for bugs and testing, because effectively next Tuesday is one day before code freeze. So let's aim at this, that we have only tests and bugs in the 2.7 release for next Tuesday. So we can, if there are any doubts, leave them in there. Just make sure I am aware of them, and I'll bring them up to TST next week. Okay. Anything else? No? Okay, then thanks everybody. And I'll talk to you next week. Have a great day for those of you in the United States, and a great rest of the evening for those of you in Europe. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.